So you want to play VR games like this, but every time you try them, you end up feeling like this. Well, you're not alone. VR sickness is very common, but it is also something you can overcome. Like you, when I first started using VR, I was super excited to no longer just be playing a game, but to feel like I was in the game. Unfortunately, that excitement was pretty quickly replaced by cold sweats, headaches, and nausea, because as soon as I tried playing one of my very first VR games, Resident Evil 4, I learned just how real a thing VR sickness is. So what exactly causes VR sickness? Well, it's basically motion sickness. There's a disconnect in your brain between what you see with your eyes and what you feel in your body. Your eyes are telling your brain that you're moving, but your body doesn't feel any movement. And for whatever reason, the way your body reacts to this is to make you feel sick. Getting your VR legs, I relate to a sailor getting their sea legs. When people are on ships on the ocean, it takes them time to adjust to feeling that constant rolling motion, but once they do, they say they've gotten their sea legs. While VR is similar, it's really more the opposite of that, because rather than feeling the motion, you see the motion. But just like someone can get their sea legs, you can also get your VR legs. My first tip for new VR users is to use a mat of some kind you can feel with your feet to help you stay centered in your play space. I'm sure you've seen plenty of VR fail videos where people run into or punch a wall or their TV or something else. Constantly worrying if you're going to hurt yourself or damage something in your home is going to prevent you from enjoying your experience. So by having something you can stand on to help you know you're in a safe space to swing your arms around can be a big help. I most often play VR in my office here, and I've found if I keep one foot on the corner of the protective floor mat for my office chair, that keeps me in a safe space where I don't have to worry about hitting anything. The boundary system built into Meta's Quest headsets is also a nice help with this, as it will display a grid around you when you get too close to the edge of your play space. But this doesn't necessarily prevent you from hitting something, which is why I recommend using a mat of some kind, because then you know as long as you feel it under your feet, you're good and have no reason to worry. My second tip is to start with games and experiences that don't require you to move around the game world. For the love of all that is sacred and holy, do not start with driving games, roller coaster simulators, shooters, and any other game where you have to use smooth locomotion to get from one place to another in the game world. The best games for beginners are the ones where you are stationary and can interact with things around you without having to move around. Beat Saber is a great one for this. You can stand in one place and chop the blocks as they come at you. It's a super fun game and is one that even people brand new to VR can easily enjoy. A couple other games I would suggest for new players is Job Simulator and Vacation Simulator, as they both allow you to interact with the game world and not have to move around all that much. For people who are into D&D and tabletop games and such, Demeo is another game you may want to check out, as it allows you to stay in one place and play the game, but also has mechanics that allow you to move around the game board and zoom in on things, giving you full control over how much you move around. What I think is great about this is it exposes you to a small amount of artificial locomotion, which will then help you on your quest to build up your VR legs. Depending on the games you're playing and the amount of artificial movement you're doing and your tolerance to it, in the beginning, you may only be able to play for several minutes at a time before VR sickness begins to set in. And this leads me to tip number 3, which is to stop playing as soon as you start to feel uncomfortable. If you're starting to feel weird or feel the beginnings of a headache coming on, anything like that, take the headset off and take a break. If you keep going and try to push through, you're only going to make yourself feel worse, and then it's going to take hours before you feel better. Trust me, I've been there. I've tried to power through and ended up making myself so sick I nearly threw up, and it took me hours before I felt good enough to even continue on with life, let alone try VR again. As you follow this advice, I promise you that each time you play, you will see progress, and you'll be able to play a little bit longer before needing to take that next break. Once you're feeling pretty comfortable in VR and ready to start trying out some games where you move around a bit more, tip number 4 is to play games with adjustable comfort settings. Several really good ones that help me are Resident Evil 4 and Red Matter 2. Both of these games have standalone versions, which makes them super accessible to people. But for those of you with access to PC VR, Half-Life Alyx is another game I credit with helping me build up my VR legs. I recommend these games in particular because they all have multiple options for moving around. This will allow you to change between different movement types to what is most comfortable to you, as well as try ones that may feel a bit weird for short periods of time and help you on this quest to build up your VR legs. The best movement option when you're starting out, in my opinion, is teleport. I know it sounds weird to be teleporting from place to place, as this is not something we currently have the ability to do in real life. But trust me, it is way more comfortable than smooth motion when you're first starting out. When you start playing these types of games, I recommend using teleport for a good while, and then from time to time, try using some of the other movement options the games offer for a little bit. And when you start feeling the beginnings of VR sickness coming on, you can switch back to teleport again, and sometimes that will stop it and you can continue playing. Of course, if you don't start feeling better pretty quickly, then it's time to refer back to tip number 3 and take a break. Another option these games provide to help with VR sickness is called blinders. The idea behind these is to block out your peripheral vision, so all you see is what's directly in front of you. Not seeing the motion on your periphery helps some people to feel more comfortable. This did not work for me, however. I felt using the blinders made me feel a little more sick, so this is one of those settings I recommend you try out to see if it helps you or not, and then depending on how it works for you, use it or don't use it accordingly. One other comfort option that can be helpful is snap turning. Personally, I like to play standing up and just turn in real life to face a different direction. But there are some people who play sitting down, or simply can't be bothered to physically turn, so you can use the analog stick if you like, typically on your right controller to change the direction you're looking. Most games offer both snap turning and smooth turning. Smooth turning, of course, gives you a sliding effect like this, and snap turning, I think of it as the turning equivalent of teleporting. Like teleporting, most people find snap turning to be much more comfortable than smooth turning, as you're not getting that unnatural sensation of movement. As you continue to work on building up your VR legs, you're going to want to use a mixture of these comfort settings whenever you feel like you need them. But ultimately, you are going to need to try using these smooth motion options from time to time, for as long as you can tolerate, and slowly over the course of days or maybe weeks, depending on how often you play, your brain and body will adjust. And this leads me to my 5th and final tip: be consistent. The more regularly you spend time in VR, the quicker you're going to build up your VR legs. When I first started playing, I only played once or twice a week maybe, and it took several months before I could play games using smooth motion all the time without feeling sick. I don't know anyone personally that has done it super quickly, but I've heard of people who have followed many of the tips I share in this video and have built up their VR legs in as little as several days to about a week. If you only play once in a blue moon, then it's obviously going to take you a lot longer to acclimate to VR's artificial motion than someone who is playing every day. Now, we all have different schedules and responsibilities, so I'm not going to tell you you have to play every day or anything like that. Because from my experience, as long as you're consistent and spend a little time in VR each week, slowly over time as you expose yourself to it, your brain will adjust and you'll be able to do more and more, and eventually you'll be able to spend hours in VR without any problems whatsoever. Come on, do it. You know you want to. Subscribe.